What you witnessed on Saturday night on the surface was a display of U.S. military power, sure. We haven't ever seen that before. That's the difference. No troops on the ground, no Americans killed. Iran had no idea we were even there until our planes were already gone. But maybe even more impressive, there were absolutely no leaks. So we're going to do something a little bit different tonight here on Finnerty, because there are some people, even some Republicans in Washington, who are against what the president did on Saturday. Predictably, there's not a lot of Democrats who are for what the president did. Most Democrats are against what Donald Trump did on Saturday, although John Fetterman remains the lone voice of reason in a party where common sense and reason don't collide very often in the same sentence. But for the purposes of tonight, I want you to forget about what Democrats are saying right now, because Donald Trump has said it himself. He could literally cure cancer, and Democrats would still be against it. Democrats would be out there waving Pfizer flags in the street instead of being happy about a cure for cancer. That's where we are. So tonight, we want to take you through why we think this was the right move. Then we're going to go through why it might not have been the right move. But then we're going to end up right back where we started, because we think this was the right move, and why the world is safer tonight than it was when you woke up on Saturday morning. Not America, not Israel, the world. The U.S. hit multiple nuclear sites in Iran on Saturday, sites where the Iranians were enriching uranium to build a nuclear weapon, which is a fact that we didn't think was in dispute, and no one was disputing it except people working here in our own media, whose very first instinct on Sunday was to defend the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism.
That the United States did not see intelligence that the Supreme Leader had ordered weaponization.
That's irrelevant. I see that question being asked in the media. That's an irrelevant question.
No,
they have everything they need to build a weapon.
That is the key point in U.S. intelligence assessments. You know that.
No, it's not.
Yes, it was.
No, it's
that
not.
The political decision had not been made.
I know that better than you know that. Why would you bury things in a mountain, 300 feet under the ground?
Right.
Why would you bury why do they have 60% enriched uranium? You don't need 60% enriched uranium. The only countries in the world that have uranium at 60% are countries that have nuclear weapons. Why do they have a space program? Is Iran going to go to the moon? No. They're trying to build an ICBM.
It all makes sense, doesn't it? Iranians refer to America as the great Satan. They call Israel the little Satan. Death to America is another favorite refrain there. The Iranians say all of this because they hate America. And yet the first instinct from our media was to defend Iran. The New York Times on Saturday night, directly after the attack, here's the headline: the U.S. enters war against Iran, which is not at all what happened. The U.S. at no time ever declared war on Iran, and the New York Times knows that. But because they hate Donald Trump and this country in many ways, they would rather lie to you, the American public. That headline was a lie. The United States has provided Ukraine with weapons to use against Russia for almost 4 years, and I don't ever remember seeing a New York Times headline declaring that the U.S. was at war with Russia. Do you? I don't think so, because it never happened. And for the last several days, Democrats like Jasmine Crockett and Bernie Sanders continue to claim that the president's actions were somehow unconstitutional, which is also a lie, and they know it.
The mofo that resides in the White House has unilaterally, in my estimation, declared war. We have a constitution that seemingly does not matter.
Not only is this news that I've just heard, the second alarming that all of you have just heard, but it is so grossly unconstitutional. All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The president does not have the right.
What you heard before that was Jasmine Crockett, a Democratic member of Congress from Texas, calling Donald Trump a mofo, which is short for something that we can't say on TV. Ilhan Omar, who last week claimed the United States was worse than the country that she's born in, Somalia, a country that is very literally still run by a dictator. She tweeted that the strikes on Iran were executed without congressional authorization and mark a dangerous escalation to an already volatile conflict in the Middle East. And AOC then tweeted that the president's decision to bomb Iran without authorization is a grave violation of the Constitution and is absolutely and clearly grounds for impeachment. Democrats throw around impeachment like it's just a casual thing. And remember that word grave. That went out over the weekend to call this is a grave situation. Multiple Democrats said this was grave. And Senator Tim Kaine, the answer to one of the great political trivia questions of our time, who did Hillary Clinton run with in 2016, said the exact same thing over the weekend.
We should not be sending troops and risking troops' lives in an offensive war without a debate in Congress.
All right, so this is all even more surprising tonight. After 20 years of American presidents, Republican and Democrat, telling us they were going to do something finally about Iran and then doing absolutely nothing when they got to the White House. Bill Clinton, George Bush, Barack Obama, all the way to Joe Biden, every single one of them promising Americans that they would be the ones to finally do something about Iran and then never doing a thing. The Iran nuclear deal was a great deal for Iran because it never stopped them from building a nuclear weapon. It also never achieved any of this.
The Iran nuclear agreement, I say this straightforwardly, is the strongest, most intrusive, most accountable nuclear agreement that we have anywhere on the planet. Right. And it required a country that had nuclear capacity, which was at 2 months breakout time to having a weapon, to destroy their plutonium reactor, undo their centrifuges that enrich, limit their level of enrichment, accept 130 additional inspectors to know what's happening, limit their mining, have television cameras watching what they're doing. All of that happened.
After 20 years of American presidents doing nothing but emboldening regimes that hate America, the United Nations today says they are gravely concerned about the United States hitting nuclear sites in Iran, which, if you think about it, doesn't really make a lot of sense. It means they are gravely concerned about an American president just making the world a safer place, because many of these people would rather believe the Iranian foreign minister who a day ago insisted that these nuclear sites were just peaceful nuclear facilities instead of believing Donald Trump. Take a listen to this and try not to laugh.
The Islamic Republic of Iran condemns in the strongest terms the United States' brutal military aggression against Iran's peaceful nuclear facilities. It is an outrageous, grave, and unprecedented violation of the fundamental principles of the Charter of the United Nations and international law.
All right, did you hear it? So Iran's peaceful nuclear facilities. It's like jumbo shrimp, right? It's an oxymoron. Peaceful like those US B-2 bombers on Saturday took out a yoga class at a spa 600 feet underground, under a mountain in a country 8,000 miles away. But the truth is that peaceful nuclear facility can't actually exist when the sole purpose of that nuclear facility is to build a weapon that kills Jews. And that is all these people want to do. Kill Jews, and then if there's anything left over, kill Americans too. That's exactly what the purpose of these facilities was, past tense. These were not peaceful facilities. And if there were any remaining questions about that, an Iranian politician destroyed that this morning when he tweeted this before all the breaking news, quote, that even if the sites were completely destroyed, the game is far from over. Enriched materials, domestic expertise, and political will are still intact, meaning they were always and have always been about enriching uranium to build a nuclear weapon. And that mission, according to that tweet, will continue. At least that's what it looked like this morning. It looks different right now. But again, this was all going to be at these peaceful nuclear facilities. Like a day spa, you can get a foot rub, build a bomb, right? Get your back rub, Swedish massage, build a bomb at one of these peaceful nuclear facilities. Sounds great. It's like a resort spa, right? Just south of Tehran. Sounds great. 125 degrees all year long there. So did the president take a risk on Saturday? Right back to where we started. The answer to that question is still yes. But this Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon notion that America should sit back and let a country like Iran build a nuclear weapon is also wrong. Americans do not want another war in the Middle East. Poll after poll after poll continue to prove that to be the truth. Almost 80% of Trump voters do not want another war in the Middle East, that according to a brand new poll out today. But what Donald Trump did sent a very clear message to our enemies in China and Russia and every other country out there that wants to hurt America. Donald Trump broke with decades of policy inertia by breaking the status quo, finally, and doing what he promised to do when he campaigned to be president. Yes, many Americans were shocked by the news over the weekend, but part of that shock was not that it happened. I think part of the shock was people being surprised to realize formally that a pulse has returned to the White House. After 4 years of a dementia patient living in the White House, Americans had gotten used to the rhythm of the previous administration that was so clearly America-lasque. Risk is part of the game. Donald Trump took a risk that may have ended a war before it really started, and history could ultimately end up looking back at the last 12 days as a turning point, not only for peace in the Middle East, but for peace around the world.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.